What is going on? Welcome back to the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast, where my name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am your host as always. I am using this podcast to be able to document my journey in real estate and business while also talking a little bit about travel hacking and personal finance. We got a really good show for you today, very informational, and if you've never dealt with the eviction process before, this is my first time going through it too, so just being able to really learn, and I'm going to be able to break down exactly what's happening in my eviction going on month 4 here. But before we hop into that, go ahead and follow me at leadway.wealth, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can follow and update everything that I'm doing in my business because I am documenting it right here. So go follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post once a day where you can follow exactly what I'm doing. And then I post the podcast here and anywhere you listen to podcasts. So it's the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. And let's hop into today's show. So it is going to be documenting my current eviction going on month 4 now. And to say it's been very interesting is an understatement. When the attorney comes to you and says, yeah, this person left you in a really bad spot. So that's what's going on here. And I just wanted to be able to talk about this from beginning to end and what's going on, because basically I bought a property to be able to flip through New Western, and none of this is New Western's fault. So they got it from a wholesaler. And what happened was there was a tenant still there who used to be the past owner, and they were on a supposed lease. And so we did the normal eviction process, not renewing the lease. They didn't move out. We took them to court, and that's when it got really interesting. So let's hop into that story from beginning to end. So this person who owned the home was going into foreclosure, was behind well over $60,000 on their payments, and this wholesaler, so this is what they do. They take somebody who's going into foreclosure or pre-foreclosure, and they say, hey, we can catch up your payments, and they deed the house to them. They sell it because they can't catch up on their payments. It wouldn't make sense if that person, has their arrears paid off and then has to pay that person back. Like, it just doesn't work. So they sell the house to avoid the foreclosure. And in this case, they said, only if I can stay in the property. So the biggest question is, what was this person going to do if the bank took their house? They're just going to say, well, I can't move right now. It's like, no, they're going to get the sheriff and take you out. So this person was going into foreclosure, sold their home to this wholesaler who then caught up their arrears and then sold the home to, or listed with New Western to be able to then sell to me. And how it happened was, where it really got interesting, we had a problem with the title, just being able to follow it since I didn't present it from beginning to end, which was a really big learning lesson for me, is that if you go to court, you need to have all the documentation, extra documentation for anything they possibly need. So here is what happened. We followed the title all the way from beginning to end, which wasn't the problem, but when this person got the house they bought the house the first time, they did it in their LLC, which had been dissolved a few days before just because they didn't renew it. So then about a month goes by, and then December 4th, they end up selling that house again, but to the person's name. So from the past owner to this person's name, because the LLC was dissolved. So then it goes from this person's name to New Western to me. So that is the chain of title, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because the past owner had been currently on a lease, or a month-to-month lease. But the problem was it was not drafted well at all, and they're trying to claim that it's fake in court. So long story short here is that this person believes that they can stay in the house for the rest of their life because they thought that was the agreement. And the wholesaler said, yes, you can stay in there as long as you want, but then he ended up selling the house. So this person, through all the court system, had, or through our court, 3 appearances in court, had been determined that this lease is not valid because the LLC, or not because the LLC had been dissolved, but because the signatures that the past owner had signed didn't look correct. They said it looked forged, so they threw out the lease. So now this person is living in the home that I bought on no lease. So what's happening now is that, like I just said, she's living there on no lease. And that's the long story shortened a little bit just for the podcast episode, because, we went back and forth. So we figured out the chain of title. We figured out why she still thinks she's there, because she didn't think she was going to sell it, or she didn't want to sell it if she couldn't live there. But, the bank's taking it. So it's not too much of an argument. She has one of 2 choices. So now, through that eviction, it was all based on a lease. It was all eviction court. So, that's what we have to go off of. We have to go off terms. We have to go off contracts. But, when the lease is thrown out, it has to get, the case has to get thrown out. So what we have to do now is we determine that she is not on a legal lease living in our property, and we have determined that she is a tenancy at will. So the tenancy at will means that it's or here's the definition from Google. It's a rental agreement where either the landlord or tenant can end the tenancy at any time with proper notice, as there's no fixed term or end date. So this person living in my property would fall under that category of tenancy at will, because somebody else, or because this lease that she supposedly signed with somebody else who doesn't own the property anymore, made these terms and agreements up. So there's no terms or agreements now. She's just living there. So basically that's a lot of back and forth, but what that does is that gives the judge 2 decisions to make. So it either determines that she is a tenant and that I have to be able to sign her on a lease, which would be like, or I either have to re-sign her to a lease, or it determines that she is trespassing and does not belong there. So basically she's squatting. So that's what we're giving the judge the 2 decisions to make. And I have to go actually drop that notice off today. But, it's such a long process from beginning to end here. And, that's the update on where we're at. And it may not sound as confusing to you, but being through this for 4 months, not understanding what's going on, is the title work correct? Does the person actually get to stay there for the rest of her life? Well, no. So that's where we're at right now. And due to the length of term on the hard money loan, this is the action we have to take to be able to try and get her out as soon as possible, because this loan term is coming up in about 2 months. And then, I get a 3 months extension period, but basically I can't sell the house. It's going to take a little bit too long to be able to renovate, to get the ARV that we want, get it fixed, listed, and then try and get it sold. And if it doesn't sell, that's probably about a 60 to 90 day process. So let's just say long-term 3 months. It takes to list, and say we get an under contract day 1. So that's about 60 to 90 days from beginning to end, just when we start the property or the project. So by the time we hit this second court, whether it goes to another one or whether we can wrap it up in one, we're already looking at 120 days and almost 4 months. So basically, we're not going to be able to sell the property, but we can still renovate it. So that's the only, flexibility period we have. So this property, when we get her out finally, I feel a lot better and calmer now, because, I just had that sick feeling in my stomach. I'm like, I just feel like this isn't going to go the way we want it to. But, going through this process, I feel a lot better. Like my stomach's settled, like I understand it. It's like, okay, so here's why this way we were trying didn't work. So here's where we go now. And, that settled my stomach quite a bit. So I feel so much better going forward here, knowing that we basically have these two options, and then we know we can get her out because she doesn't belong there. She forfeited her right to be able to live in the house by not making her mortgage payments. And it's unfortunate, but, it's not, I just kind of bought the house and ran into this situation. So, we try to work with them as much as we can. She doesn't want to communicate, so we have to go this route. It's just business. And so that's where we're at now. And I will be able to keep you updated on this house as we, get the eviction complete and then we get started on the work. Hopefully within the next month or two, we're in that house renovating, and then it's going to end up coming a pad split. So stay tuned for that. But that's all I got on this eviction update. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you on the next episode.